Hello, my name is AJ Goldsby. I'm a life master from Pensacola, Florida, and today I wanted to bring you game number 8 of the World Championship match that was played in Sochi, Russia between Magnus Carlsen and Viswanathan Anand. Basically, I am continuing my coverage of the World Championship match that was played last year. It took me a few days of preparation in order to get ready to do this video. I had to go back and reanalyze several games. First of all, I had to update my Game of the Month website, and also too there was a game in there that was played between, in 2004, it was played between Peter Leko was white and Grandmaster Vladimir Kramnik was black. This was a World Championship match game that was played in 2004 between these two contestants, and I wanted to thoroughly update both the webpage and the game itself because it's the same opening. It's the exact same opening. It's the Bishop F4 Queen's Gambit with the black playing an early C5, and basically, you know, we reached the exact same position after something like 7 or 8 moves. So I wanted to make sure that I updated that web page because that web page was very relevant to this one, and also too I wanted to add this game to the list there at the bottom of that web page. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and just dive right in to this game. This is game number 8 of the World Championship match. It was played in, I believe, on the 18th of November of 2014. Viswanathan Anand is white, and Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen, who is the current world champion, he is black in this game. This is a World Championship game. Basically, the day before, we had a 122 move game. I did my video on that to kind of rush through the last few moves because I don't really think anyone wants to see a video on 122 moves. At least I don't want to do one. Not all the commentary because it was basically just a prolonged draw. Both players probably were a little bit tired. In fact, I watched a video just recently, just a few days ago, of the this World Championship game, and it shows Magnus Carlsen appears to be dozing off and falling asleep in the middle of the game. It's possibly a very important game, though, because this was, you know, a very key game. Anand's going to be white. He's been able to put a little bit of pressure on Carlsen in the last few games. And, you know, after 2 whites, this was Carlsen's black after almost 3 days. But apparently Magnus Carlsen's team had done their homework. Magnus Carlsen didn't seem to be too worried. He was determined, I think, not to give the challenger any chances in this game. Anyway, without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump in this game. Again, Anand is white and Carlsen is black. The game starts off d4. Of course, Anand started off as a king pawn player, so I think it's very important, you know, to stick with what you know. But apparently he feels like that, you know, he's learned the queen pawn in the last few years, the last 5 or 10 years. At one time, though, he played, I believe, the king pawn pretty much exclusively. So Anand's basically sticking to what's been working for him, at least in this match. He's going to stay with d4. Carlsen plays 1 knight f6, c4, e6. So now we're looking at possibly a Nimzo Indian. If white plays knight to c3, then black can respond with bishop b4, and that would be a Nimzo Indian. Instead, Anand plays 3 knight f3, d5. Of course, we are transposing back to the Queen's Gambit Declined. 4 knight c3, bishop e7, bishop f4. This is basically what a lot of people are calling now the Aronian Queen's Gambit, because Aronian, one of the world's best players, is basically reviving this, and he's come up with a lot of key improvements in this line, and a lot of grandmasters are now playing this line with white, I think mainly because of Aronian's success with this line. Carlsen's also played this line as both white and black, and more with white, and done very well with it. Anyway, castles, e3. All this had been played in the third game, but now Carlsen goes for the older line. He plays c5. And this is an extremely popular position. I searched it just the other day, the main online database, and there were literally something like thousands of matches. I didn't even count how many. It was 4,000 or 5,000. I'm not sure exactly how many. All the big boys have played this line. Garry Kasparov played it with white at least 6 times and 5 times with black. Karpov played it with white on 7 occasions and 17 times as black. Vladimir Kramnik has played 11 games with the white side and also played at least 10 games that I found in the database with black, not counting a blitz game. So basically, you can surely say this is a line played by the world champions. And as I already mentioned, there was a game in there where Peter Leko was white and he won, and he defeated Vladimir Kramnik in their match, their world championship match that was played in 2004. Anyway, the game continues. The main line is D takes C5, bishop takes C5, and actually white can also exchange on D5 and give black an isolated pawn, but Anand's not doing that. 8A3, knight C6, queen C2. All this is pretty much normal theory. You can find this in MCO. Now is where things, get a little bit different, because Carlsen plays queen C2, but now things really get very different because Carlsen plays a move that's it's happened a few times in the database, a number of times, but it's never been tried by a top grandmaster as far as I could determine. Rook E8. This is a relatively new move for the world echelon of chess. In other words, the very top players. It's basically a fairly simple move. One of the black's ideas is eventually just to play E5 and kick back white's bishop. I think that's a very good idea. In fact, I've been trying this idea online with a number of blitz games, and what I've been doing is playing H6 and then E5. So if you play E5 right away, maybe black plays bishop G5 and you have a problem with the D5 square. But what I've been doing is playing H6 and E5 and also getting fairly playable positions. It's not computer analysis, but it's certainly an interesting try for blitz. And you gain space, you gain time, by hitting the bishop on F4. And also too, if pawn takes pawn, black can recapture, with the pawn, and then D5, D4 is a very real threat because of the pin on the E file. Anyway, Carlsen plays bishop G5. Anand, I apologize. Anand is white. Anand plays bishop G5. And a lot of commentators give that move an exclam. I don't know if it's necessarily an exclam. It's just part of opening theory, but it puts some pressure on Carlsen, and maybe that's why one of the annotators, I believe it was the annotator for ICC, and also the annotator for ChessBase, both of those GMs gave bishop G5 an exclam. It's obviously something that Anand had prepared because he played the move relatively quickly here, but it's not necessarily guaranteed to be the best. I mean, it's one of the top moves, but it's not 100% guaranteed that it's going to be the very best move. I haven't done a lot of computer analysis of this game because other people have already done that. Just below the box of the video where it says show more, I'll make sure that I provide the ChessBase link for this game, and you can download the annotations there for this game. There's also, I believe, a video on this game by Daniel King. But anyway, just check out the very excellent ChessBase article, and you can find lots of information there, and you can download the PGN file of their the GM's annotations there. Now, according to ChessBase, black's next move, actually I found several games on ICC that were played between grandmasters there that but according to ChessBase, this is the first time that, at least in a regular tournament game, that a grandmaster played this move, is bishop E7. And according to the annotator there, that move is a novelty. And it's just a good move. It helps back up this bishop. Now if pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, and we can trade a lot of material, and the game can get extremely drawish. Anand replies with a very just simple move, just rook D1. Again, another just a very simple move, but also a very effective move, very strong move. The idea is to put pressure on the D5 square. In fact, the threat now is just bishop takes knight and pawn takes pawn, and unless black wants to give up his bishop, then he could lose a pawn on the D5 square. Queen A5, that's just a natural developing move. It pins the knight. Now black is threatening ideas like if bishop E2, knight E4 is actually quite, good for black. So black plays, Carlsen plays, actually first Anand plays bishop D3, and now Carlsen replies with H6. Just a very simple move. Bishop H4, D takes C4, bishop takes C4, and now A6. And at this point, I got to think that basically we've got a symmetrical pawn structure White has the slightly better piece placement, but overall, I think that, you know, it's pretty much equal. Maybe White has a very tiny edge in such a position. White castles. Black plays b5, bishop a2, and now we play bishop b7. And here, you know, Anand plays just bishop b1. And obviously now there's a threat, you know, if like bishop takes knight, if pawn takes bishop, double question mark, queen h7 is a checkmate. So black plays ra d8, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and now knight e4. Now, of course, the threat is just, you know, knight takes knight check and possible mates on the, you know, on the king side there, or maybe winning a pawn. In other words, knight takes bishop, pawn takes knight, queen h7 check, and, you know, queen takes pawn would win a pawn for white. So that's basically White's primary tactical threat there, and that's something I teach all my students. One of the things you need to learn to do, in case you are a beginner or someone who doesn't have much tournament experience, one of the things very useful to do to learn this early is that anytime you're playing a tournament game is to stop after your opponent has made his move and ask, what is his threat? What is my opponent trying to accomplish there? And it's very, very important to basically to isolate what the primary or the main tactical threat is of your opponent's move after every move. And with a little practice, you can learn to do that. Most players, I don't think, necessarily learn to do that up front, but it's something I teach my students to do. Obviously, GMs know how to do that. I mean, that's something their coaches teach them when they're very young. But it's something I think you need to learn to do if you want to become a fairly proficient player, especially at the tournament level. And I think that just about every player out there sometime in his life should try you know, a rated tournament, no matter what country you live in. But anyway, this is 1994, and now Vishy's already used up, you know, a lot of his time. I think he's down under an hour at this point. And Carlsen was very obviously still in his preparation. I think at this point, according to the video, he'd only used 10 or 15 minutes on his clock. So, you know, Carlsen is just cruising along, whereas Anand's already struggling and working real hard to find moves. Bishop e7, 19 bishop e7. Obviously, Carlsen's not going to allow anything stupid. White could try the tricky move, knight f6, and if black played pawn takes, queen h7 check, king f8, queen in the corner is a checkmate. But obviously, knight f6 is just a blunder. Knight f6 check is a blunder because after bishop takes knight, and then queen h7 check, king f8, and if check again, king e7, and basically, you know, black just runs away from the attack. So, you know, that's a move that a player might try and blitz, but obviously that's not something that a grandmaster is going to do, not at this level. Anand plays a very, you know, expected move there. He plays just knight c5. The idea is basically, you know, trying to put pressure on black's queen side. Obviously, the light squared bishop, black's LSB on b7 is hanging, so there's a threat there to take that. Carlsen captured here. That wasn't necessarily the only move. You know, black could have just played bishop to a8 and put his king bishop in the corner. That was also playable. As to whether or not that was best, that's a whole nother thing. But Carlsen just plays bishop takes c5 there, queen takes c5, and now b4. That's an interesting move, you know, by Magnus Carlsen. Not necessarily the move I would have played there. Again, you can analyze this game all day, but eventually it's drawn, and I basically just want to try to, you know, make this video quick and informative. If you want to spend a lot of time finding out which move is best, I think just about every viewer and every player today is capable of dealing with his own chess engine, his favorite chess engine, and, you know, firing it up and doing some extensive, you know, review of the game. That's not my goal here. My goal here is just basically provide an overview of the game. I don't think any side ever made any mistakes. I'm sure of that. I've gone through it with fine computer programs, chess engines like Deep Fritz 14 and Houdini 3 and, you know, Ribka 4, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I'm sure that neither side ever was in danger of losing this game. As to whether or not each move is best or absolutely best according to a single chess engine, well, that's open to debate. But anyway, b4, white plays rook c1, b takes a3, b takes a3, queen takes c5, rook takes c5, and now just simply knight e7. You know, we've got a symmetrical position. You know, we're trading a lot of pieces. You know, really, if they wanted to shake hands and agree to a draw here, they could have. They continue to play on. RFC1, rook c8, bishop to d3, rook takes, rook c8, rook takes, rather knight takes, 28, knight takes c8. Again, this has got to be a drawn game. Obviously, I think White's got every reason in the world to play on in this game. He can bring his king up, to the center much more quickly. In fact, I had this game in a tournament game. It's been about this position or one very much like it. I think maybe Black captured with his bishop on c8, which was a slight mistake, and I won that game because I was able to bring my king up to b4, and Black just didn't, realize what was happening, and basically wound up allowing my king to penetrate, and I won the game. That was a tournament game. My opponent was only in 1800 though, so. And he'd used a lot of time early in the game, so I don't really think that game is relevant to this. Knight takes c8 is obviously the indicated move, and I don't think anyone would have faulted either player if they decided to agree to a draw here. They play out a few more moves. We'll just run through that quickly. 29, knight d2, knight b6, knight b3, knight d7. Of course, now White cannot invade c5 because that square is covered. Knight a5, bishop c8. Just hanging on to the pawn, king f1, king f8, king e1, king e7, king d2, king d6. Notice Black's bringing his king up very rapidly as well. Anand's not going to make the same mistake that I was telling you about that my opponent did in one of our games and allow White just to march his king up unopposed and penetrate into the queen side. I mean, that's just not good chess. King c3, knight e5, bishop e2, king c5, f4. Obviously, actually, we should talk about this position after 36, king c5. Now, actually, Black might even be a tiny bit better here, because if I could have gotten my king, if White could have gotten his king to the 4th rank, then I would have felt like, usually if I get my king to the 4th rank, I feel like that's a slight advantage. Not always necessarily a guaranteed win, but at least a slight advantage. The fact that Black's gotten his king to the 4th rank means that he has, I feel like, either a slight advantage or at least a draw. f4, knight c6, knight takes c6, king takes c6, king d4. Now the White king is on the 4th rank, f6. But the problem is that Black can play, if he wants to, he can play king d6 and e5 and kick back the White king. e4, king d6, e5 check. And here the game is agreed drawn. I mean, White's king is, it's a academic advantage. White has a slight plus here. You can verify that with all the engines, but it's also not enough to win the game. Both at this point, Magnus Carlsen and Anand shook hands and agreed to a draw. This was actually a very important game for the theory of the Queen's Gambit Decline. Rook e8 and bishop e7 is an idea that Magnus' team came up with, and I'm sure it's going to see a lot more GM usage in the future. But for the spectators, it was probably not very rewarding game. I mean, there weren't any fireworks, weren't any fancy sacrifices, nothing really happened. And the bad thing about this is remember the World Championship matches nowadays are much shorter affairs. They used to be very long games. In fact, sometimes they were, draws did not count. And in the classical matches that were played in a lot of the 5 matches from the onset of the World Championship match up to the 1960s, before Fischer came along and imposed his ideas on the World Championship match, they were at least 24 games. The most matches were 24 games, and that's a fairly lengthy match. Fischer, of course, liked the idea that draws should not count, and it should be the first person to win a set number of games, say 6 or 10 games. That was basically Fischer's idea. They tried that format in several matches. Most notably, it was occurred in the World Championship match between Garry Kasparov and Anatoly Karpov, their first meeting in World Championship, and that went almost 50 games. I think it was 48 games before, finally, they basically what happened was the president of the World Chess Federation canceled the match. Campomanes canceled the match and said, let's have a new match. We could debate that all day. But anyway, that was a disaster for the people that, liked that format of match. I think that format was more fair to the challenger, because the first side to win the match is the first side to win X number of games. But the problem with that is you could have an unlimited number of games, and now they're playing matches. Basically, the World Championship match is usually 12 games and then tiebreakers. I don't like that format at all, but that's just the format that we seem to be stuck with currently. I think that part of the problem is that people today just don't have the patience to sit through a really long match, and I think that's the spectators' problem and not the players' problem. I think, to be fair to the players, one day I hope they go back to more legitimate matches of a greater test, especially now that we're going to only have matches that are going to be played every other year. But anyway, here, the draw was agreed, and the bad part about this game was that this was another white for Anand. It was a lost opportunity. He wasn't able to generate any real pressure, and as a result, in such a short match, it's got to be looked as something of a downturn for the challenger. And because I believe at this point, Carlsen was +1. Anyway, and he has to be thinking, hey, I only get maybe one more white, or two more whites at the very most. And if he doesn't make something happen, then he's got to actually win 2 games to win the match. So because otherwise he's down 1 game right now. So it's basically every game, especially after this game, you could see that basically the match is running away from Anand. Whereas earlier he looked like he was very much in it, but now it seems to be slowly, just every game puts him that much further behind the 8 ball. Anyway, this pretty much concludes my coverage of the World Championship match for Game 8. I'm going to continue to try to get all my videos done. I only have a couple more videos. In fact, I think I only have 2 more videos to finally complete all my coverage of the World Championship match that was played in 2014. Anyway, this concludes my video for Game 8. Thank you for watching my video, and thank you for visiting my web pages. If you like my videos and like my web pages and would like to support my effort to bring you the very best quality material that I'm capable of bringing to you, and it's all free, there's never any charge for it, then please go to the PayPal website. That's www.paypal.com, and make a contribution under my email address, which is LifeMasterAJ@yahoo.com. That's just LifeMasterAJ@yahoo.com. And I thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please email me. I just gave my email address. Please email me and let me know if you have any comments about this game. And I hope you have a great day.